Good morning. Try that again. Good morning.
In unison. Good morning, Your Honor.
I notice the defendant's not present.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Jackson is at.
They can't hear you. Speak into the microphone, please.
Mr. Jackson is at Cottage Hospital in Santa Ynez with a serious back problem. My understanding is he's on his way in. The doctor does want to talk to you on the phone. That's the last information I have. I had the doctor on my cell phone. I did give it to your clerk and try to make contact with you, but I know that they're waiting, hoping to speak to you about it. My understanding is that he does plan to come in.
I'm going to issue a warrant for his arrest. I'm forfeiting his bail.
Your Honor.
I'm going to hold that order for 1 hour. In 1 hour I'm going to execute that order. Court's in recess. Good morning.
In unison, good morning.
In unison. Good morning, Your Honor.
I'm sorry for the delay. Mr. Jackson had a medical problem this morning, and it was necessary for me to order his appearance. I'm telling you that because I don't want you to draw any adverse inference about his guilt or inference from the fact that I had to order him here. If one of you had called in and had not appeared, or one of the attorneys, I would have had to do the same thing. The trial is going to go forward. So I just want you to understand, in doing that, I'm not expressing any opinion about the case, about Mr. Jackson, or about the district attorney. It has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. Okay. All right. Let's see. Are you ready to go forward?
I am, Your Honor. And before I begin, some housekeeping from yesterday.
Mike.
How's that?
They've quit waving at me. It's probably okay.
Some housekeeping from yesterday, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yesterday we saw the overheads of those cards. For the record, I have consulted with Mr. Sanger. The cards came from item No. 1796 from the Sheriff's Department. I now have the cards themselves, and I will give them to the clerk to substitute for the video in terms of the evidence.
All right.
I think it's Exhibit 5004, and we had temporarily lodged the disc. And now the actual cards are being exchanged.
It is 5004, and I will release the disc to you now. And thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The cards are admitted into evidence.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one other issue I want to address. And as you heard yesterday, this witness has one kidney. That causes a problem. Sometimes he needs to go to the restroom more than others. Although we all seem to have that problem. Laughter. If he needs to go, he's going to signal me, and we'll just wait a minute while he does that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Morning, Tom. Mr. Sneddon.
I want to go back and talk about a couple of things that I neglected to cover yesterday. And I want to take you back in time to the first visit to Neverland Ranch, and in particular to the computer that Mr. Jackson gave you. Do you recall that?
Yes.
What kind of computer was it?
It had an Apple on it. I think it was a Mac computer or something like that. It was, like, a laptop.
After Mr. Jackson gave you the computer, were you contacted by somebody to set up some kind of internet account for that computer?
Yes. Well, Michael told me to call Evie and see, because he said he wanted me to get the internet for the computer.
Did you know who Evie was?
She was, like, an assistant lady for Michael.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, did somebody contact you after you talked to Evie?
Yeah, it was a guy named David, I think.
And what was the purpose for which David contacted you?
To help, to tell me how to set up the internet account, because I didn't know how.
And who paid for that?
Michael did.
Now, when you set up the internet account, did you have an email address?
Yes.
And what was the email address?
Whitehawk 344, I think.
Now, you say, Whitehawk. Where did the email address come from?
Well, my name, Gavin, in Irish, it means a lot of stuff. It means, like, 3 different things, but one of the things it means is, Whitehawk.
So where did you get the idea to do that?
Because Gavin means Whitehawk, so that's why I put on my screen name.
Did you have a password?
Yeah.
What was your password?
Well, it could have been a lot of things, but I think it was American.
Did you change it from time to time?
Yes.
Do you remember any of the other passwords you used?
Password 123,456, 654,321.
So you just changed the sequence of the numbers?
Yeah.
One other thing I want to talk to you about. Between the time that, well, let me ask it this way. Did you ever visit Mr. Jackson at any hotels?
Yes.
Where was that?
Once at a Universal Hilton.
And was this before, during or after the time you had cancer?
This is during the time I had cancer.
And do you remember how long you visited with him?
2 hours.
And how did you get there?
My biological father drove me over there.
Yesterday you testified about the Bashir video. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And have you ever seen that video from start to finish?
No, I've seen pieces of it, and I saw when he interviewed me, but I didn't really see the whole thing.
So you did see the part that involved you?
Yes.
And when was the first time you saw that?
Well, when I was in Miami, me and Michael, he didn't want to see it, so we didn't watch it there. I saw it in my house later when VH1 was showing it.
Was this after you left the ranch for good?
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, that portion of the video that shows you sitting on the couch with Mr. Jackson, there's a point in time where you place your head on his shoulder and hold hands with Mr. Jackson. Do you recall that part of it?
Yes.
How did that come about?
I don't know. We were just sitting there. Well, the holding hands part, that was one of the things that Michael told me to do. But I put my head on his shoulder.
Why did you do that?
Because, I don't know. It was, like he was. I was really close to Michael, and he was like my best friend, so I just put my head on his shoulder.
Okay. Now, from the time that you had the interview with you and Mr. Jackson and Mr. Bashir till the time that you left to go to Miami, did you have any contact with Mr. Jackson?
From when I left from Martin Bashir.
Right?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. From the time that you had the interview with Mr. Bashir and Mr. Jackson and you.
Okay.
Okay. Till the time shortly before you left for Miami, did you have any contact with Mr. Jackson?
No.
Do you remember when the next contact with Mr. Jackson was?
Like, right when the stuff came out, when the video documentary started showing on TV.
How did you find out that the documentary was shown on TV?
Well, it was being showed over in Britain, but they were talking about it on the news and stuff, so that's how I found out.
You actually heard it on the news yourself?
Yeah.
Did any people come around your house at all, that you know of?
No, I don't know of any.
Now, when you heard it on the news, about the documentary, did you at some point have a telephone conversation with the defendant, Mr. Jackson?
Yes. He called me.
Alright, tell us about the conversation?
He told.
Where were you when you got the call?
I was in my house, when, the first time I moved in with my stepfather. And then he called and wanted me to go to Miami because of all the stuff that was going on. And he said that he wanted to hold a press conference. And he wanted me to be with him.
With him?
During the press conference.
What else did he say?
He said that he wanted me to go over there. And he said that, we were talking about what was going on. And I was saying, it's not right what they're saying, and stuff like that.
Did Mr. Jackson make comments to you about what was going on?
No, he just said that he wanted me to go over to Miami.
Now, did you go to Miami?
Yes.
Did you go by yourself?
No.
Who went with you?
It was me, my brother, my sister, and my mom. But at first, Michael didn't really want, he only really wanted.
Objection. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Sustained.
I'll move on from there.
The last sentence is stricken.
Now, during the conversation with Mr. Jackson, okay.
Okay.
Did the subject of the rest of your family going to Miami come up?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. During the time of your conversation with Mr. Jackson, did the subject of the rest of your family coming to Miami come up during the conversation?
Yes.
Would you tell us about it?
At first I asked him if my brother can come, and then he was like, yeah. And then I asked him if my sister could come, and then he was like, okay. And then I asked if my mom could come, but he kind of got angry a little bit about my mom coming. And then, but I told him, I can't come without my mom. My mom probably won't let me. And he was like, okay, and my mom came.
During that conversation, did you hear your mother talk to Mr. Jackson?
I don't really remember.
Now, after that telephone conversation, did you go to Miami?
Yes.
And how did you get to Miami?
I went with Chris Tucker on his private plane.
Do you recall how you got to the plane?
First we went to his house, and then we put our bags in the bus, and then we went to the airport.
And how did you get from your place to his house?
I'm not sure. I think either I drove over there, or, yeah, I think I drove over there. Well, my family took me over there.
Now, do you remember about what time it was when you left for Miami with Mr. Tucker?
When we got there, there was, something was going on with the plane or whatever, and we weren't leaving for a while. And we stood around for a while. So I think it was maybe, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock probably. I'm not sure.
Was it light or dark out?
It was light out.
When you arrived in Miami, was it light or dark out?
It was dark.
And when you landed in Miami, where did you go?
We went, all in a limousine, to the hotel. Turnberry Resort, I think it was called.
Now, on the plane going there, you've told us that your family was there and that Mr. Tucker was there. Was there anybody else, if you recall, on the plane?
On Chris's plane.
Yes?
No.
When you got to the airport, you left in a limo, and you went where?
To the Turnberry Resort in Miami.
Do you remember what you did when you got there?
They got our bags and Michael put us up in the room. And then we were in the room, and then, yeah.
And do you recall what you did the next day?
Yeah. The next day they told us that Michael wanted to see us.
Who told you that?
I forgot. But, just people. And then so that morning we went up to Michael's room, and then we went and saw him.
Who went up there?
Me, my mom, my brother, and my sister.
And when you got up to Mr. Jackson's room in the hotel, was Mr. Jackson there?
Yes.
And when you got there, did you meet people that you didn't know?
Yes.
Who did you meet?
Marie Nicole, Aldo. And then these two guys were there, Dieter and Ronald.
They were there when you got there?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they were there when I got there, but I just remember I met them in Michael's room.
And do you know what the relationship is between Aldo and Marie Nicole and anybody else that you met there that day or that you know?
Well, they told us that Marie Nicole and Aldo were related to Frank Tyson. Like brother and sister.
Did you see Mr. Tyson that day?
I don't think I did.
Did you see him at any time that you were in Miami?
No, I don't think so.
Tell us what you did in Mr. Jackson's room?
Well, he wanted me to have a meeting with Ronald and Dieter, and so we went in there, and they were talking about how they're going to,
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, offered under 1223.
Well, the question, it's not responsive, so I don't know that. Next question.
All right. You told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury you went somewhere with Mr. Jackson. You went into a room with Mr. Jackson?
Yeah.
Who else was in the room?
Dieter and Ronald.
And who else?
Michael.
Now, did you have a conversation with the three of them?
Yes.
All right. Would you tell us about the conversation? And it's offered under 1223, Your Honor?
All right. This is offered conditionally, as my previous instruction covered. Go ahead.
Dieter and Ronald told me about how they were going to, stop all the media stuff from going on or whatever.
Did they say how they were going to do that?
No, not really. Dieter told me how he said that he owned, the rights to Michael's name or something like that.
At any time while you were in Miami, did you learn of any threats to you or your family?
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
Do you recall any other conversations that you had with Dieter or Ronald or Mr. Jackson?
Not really. Well, there was some. I had talked with Michael in the room. It's kind of like connected to his big hotel room.
Alright, let me just stop you there. So you had another conversation with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Were Dieter and Ronald present?
Well, first Michael was having, like, a meeting with Ronald. And then Ronald left, and then I went in there and was talking to him.
Now, is this the same meeting that you testified to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, or is this another meeting?
This is another one.
Tell us about that meeting?
Michael was just, like, talking to me and stuff, asking me how I was, and stuff like that. And he gave me, like, another little audition thing, and he improv'd, if he was a principal of a school, and then a girl said that I did something bad, and then.
Objection. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Tell us about the meeting. Calls for a narrative, so I'll sustain the objection.
Well, tell us what Mr. Jackson said to you in the meeting.
He was, like, giving me a little audition, and then we were improving.
Alright, describe the improving.
He was, like, the principal of a school, and I was a student that got in trouble because a girl said that I, like, stole something from her or something.
How long did this go on between you and Mr. Jackson?
I think it was like 5 minutes.
Now, did anything else happen between you and Mr. Jackson during your stay at the Turnberry?
Yes.
What?
He brought me this, he had poured. I didn't really see what he did, but I found out later. Like, I guess.
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Just tell us what he did, what you saw personally.
Okay, he brought me.
Just a moment. I'll sustain the objection. But you're asking another question.
I am, Your Honor.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
I'll strike the last half of his answer. Go ahead.
Alright, tell us what you saw Mr. Jackson do.
Michael gave me a Diet Coke can.
Did he tell you what was in the can?
Yeah, he told me that it was.
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer, yes, or, no.
Michael.
Just, did he tell you, yes, or, no? Did he tell you what was in the can?
Yes.
Alright, what did he tell you?
He told me if I ever heard of Jesus juice, and then.
And what did you say?
And I said I didn't know really what it was.
And did he say anything after that?
Yeah, he told me, you know how, like, Jesus drank wine. And I was like, yeah. And then he told me, well, we call it Jesus juice. And then he said that, to drink it. And I took a little sip, and I told him it.
Objection. Calls for a narrative. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Strike after. Where he starts to say, I took a little sip, that's stricken.
After Mr. Jackson handed you the can and he told you that it was Jesus juice, what did you do?
I drank a little bit of it, and I told him that it tasted ugly.
And what did he say?
He said that, it's okay, because it will relax you, and he told me that he knows that I'm all stressed out because of all the media stuff that's going on, and that the Jesus juice will relax me.
Now, do you recall how long you'd been in Mr. Jackson's suite at the time that he provided the alcohol to you?
I was in there for a while. Like, it was after the second meeting with him in the other room, the improv thing.
And from the time that Mr. Jackson gave you the can for the first time and you tasted it, how many times do you think you drank out of that can?
Well, after he.
First of all, just how many times, that you estimate?
Oh, I probably drank maybe, I don't think I drank the whole can, but I probably drank like 3/4 of it or something.
Was the can ever refilled?
I don't think I'm not sure if it was refilled. I don't think it was.
Had you ever had wine before?
Well, in church, but that's about it.
Now, did you have any further conversations with Mr. Jackson, other than the ones that you've already told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about the wine and drinking it?
Well, after he told me that, about Jesus juice or whatever, we went into the living room where everybody was, like Chris was and then my mom, Marie Nicole and Aldo and stuff like that, and we were sitting there, and then Michael was right next to me. And then I don't think my mom knew what was going on.
Objection. Calls for speculation. Narrative. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Your Honor.
Just a moment. What were you going to say?
I'm not going to say it now. I'll pick it up later.
The question was really if you had any further conversations with Mr. Jackson. You need to listen to the question. Just answer the question. That would have been a yes or no type question. So I'll sustain the objection and have you answer that question. I'll strike the rest of his answer.
Yes.
Where did those conversations take place?
In the living room.
And were there other people present?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Jackson say to you?
He was, like, telling me to keep drinking the can of the wine.
And where were you in the living room?
I was sitting on the couch, and he was sitting next to me.
Were there other people present in the room?
Yes.
Who else was around?
Chris Tucker, my mom, Aldo, Marie Nicole, my brother, my sister.
And you say you were drinking out of a can. What kind of a can?
Pretty sure it was a Diet Coke can.
And do you recall whether, the kind of wine it was?
I'm pretty sure it was white wine.
Were there, how many occasions were you in the bedroom alone with Mr. Jackson?
At Miami.
Uh-huh.
Once.
Were you alone with him in any other rooms in his suite or complex there?
No.
Now, when you woke up the next day, how did you feel?
Well, I didn't know if it was from the wine, but I felt really, like, my head kind of hurt and I felt like I just wanted to lay down.
Now, after, at some point in time that night when you were in Mr. Jackson's suite. Let me strike that. At some point when you were in Mr. Jackson's suite, did the subject of the Bashir video come up?
Yes.
Tell us in what connection it came up. Who spoke about it?
It was going to be shown in America that same night, and it was going to come on, and then Michael didn't want us.
Objection. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Can I have some water?
Sure. Help yourself.
All right. The last 3 words I'll strike. Or 4 words. Michael didn't want us. He answered the question up till that point.
I didn't want to, like, interrupt anything.
Okay. Now, about the Bashir filming that night, did Mr. Jackson say anything?
Yeah, he said that he didn't want.
He said something?
Yes.
All right. Tell us what he said?
He said that he didn't want to watch it on TV.
So was anybody else interested in watching it?
Yeah.
Objection.
Overruled. Next question.
Were they allowed to watch it?
Not in his room.
At some point that night, did you see your mother leave?
I think so. I think she went back to the room.
Did you see her later come back to Mr. Jackson's suite, or bedroom area, after she left?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Now, at some point you left Miami, correct?
Yes.
And how, when you left Miami, what form of transportation did you take?
It was in one of Michael's planes.
And how did you get to the plane?
In a limousine, I think.
Now, who was on the plane?
Me, my brother, my sister, Marie Nicole, Prince, Paris, Grace, my mom, Michael, and me, so it was a pretty packed plane.
Now, while you were on the plane, where were you seated?
I sat next to Michael in the window.
I'm sorry?
I had a window seat and Michael was sitting right next to me.
And do you recall who was sitting across from you?
I think Prince and Paris were sitting in front of us, but then they kept on, they got up during the flight, and then other people would sit there and stuff.
So were people changing seats during the flight?
Yes.
Did you ever change seats?
No.
Did Mr. Jackson ever change seats?
I think he got up for something once, but I never moved from that seat.
During the course of the flight from Miami, did you ever drink any alcohol?
Yes.
Now, who provided that alcohol to you?
Michael.
And can you tell us in what it was provided to you in?
I think it was another Coke can or Diet Coke can.
And what kind of alcohol was it?
I think it was white wine again.
And did you see where Mr. Jackson got the can from?
From the little place where they keep all the sodas in the plane.
Now, where were you when you physically drank out of the container, the can?
I was next to Michael.
And did Mr. Jackson say anything to you when he gave you the can?
Yeah, he told me it was more Jesus juice. And he said that, on the plane he told me about how he used to get scared about planes, and he said that if I was scared to drink the Jesus juice, because it will relax me.
How much do you think you drank while you were on the plane?
I think I drank the whole can.
Was the can ever refilled?
Yes.
Do you know how many times?
No.
Were you always drinking out of the same can as Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson ever say anything to you about him providing alcohol to you?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Will you tell us what he said?
He would tell me that. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Would you read it back? Record read.
Yeah, he just told me that he was getting it for me. I don't really understand too good.
Did Mr. Jackson ever give you any presents?
Yes.
Other than the computer?
Yes.
Did he ever give you any presents while you were in Miami?
Well, he had, all these games from EA.
I'm sorry?
EA, Electronic Arts, I think they're called. They got me a whole bunch of games. And then he let me have all the games that Aldo didn't really like.
When you were on the plane, did Mr. Jackson give you anything?
Yes.
What did he give you?
As we were taking off, in the hotel, he also gave me a jacket. But when we were taking off on the plane, he showed me a watch, and then he had it on, and he gave me the watch as we were taking off.
Did he say why he gave you the watch?
He said not to tell anybody about the Jesus juice, and he said that this is like a symbol that we'll be friends forever or something like that. And then he gave me the watch.
Did you have his jacket and his watch?
Yes.
During the course of the flight, were you awake the entire time?
No, I don't think so. I think I fell asleep once.
Do you have any idea how long you were out?
No.
Is there a telephone on this plane?
Yes.
And where is the telephone located?
It was, right next to us. Probably right here. So I was sitting, the window was here and Michael was here, and the telephone was right here.
And did you see anybody use the telephone during the course of the flight?
No, I don't think so.
Did you use the telephone during the flight?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yes.
And what did you use the telephone for?
I called a friend of mine.
Your Honor, I have an exhibit marked 343 for identification purposes. A brown bag with contents, and I'll show it to the witness. And I'm also going to leave in front of the witness a clear plastic bag with the number 342 on it, and the contents of that bag. Gavin, would you take a look at, just look inside and see if you recognize the item in 343.
Yes, I recognize the item.
What is it?
It's a jacket that Michael gave me in Miami.
Move that it be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Okay. Could you just, Gavin, stand up, and just put the jacket out so that the ladies and gentlemen can see the jacket, the front and the back? Thank you. Now, the next exhibit in front of you is a clear plastic bag.
Yes.
And what's the number on that exhibit?
342.
All right. Do you recognize the contents of People's 342?
Yes.
And what is that?
This is the watch that Michael gave me right before the plane took off.
Move that it be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Yeah, why don't you?
Give it to you.
No, just stand up and show it to them. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a question about the watch. With regard to that particular watch, did Mr. Jackson make any statements to you about the value of the watch when he gave it to you?
He told me that it was $75,000.
Now, did you keep that watch?
Yes.
At some point, did you give that watch to somebody?
Yeah, I think I gave it to Tom.
To me?
No, Larry.
Larry?
Yes.
Do you know who Larry is?
Larry Feldman, I think.
And do you remember when that was? Had you left Neverland for the last time?
Yes.
And after that, you gave the watch to him?
Yes.
Now, when you were at Neverland Ranch, did anybody ever ask you to give the watch back?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
No.
Now, let's go back to the flight just a second, if we can. Alright.
Uh-huh.
Where was your brother Star on the plane?
He was walking around on the plane.
Did you ever see Star drink out of the soda can?
Yes.
Tell the jury what happened?
We called my brother Star over, and Michael asked him if he knew what Jesus juice was. And then we gave him the can and we just told him to drink it. And then when he drank it, he said that it tasted bad, and so, I don't know. That's what happened.
Did you see the expression on his face when he drank it?
Yeah, he acted like it was a gross tasting face. I don't know how to say it.
I have another exhibit we're going to spend a little time with.
Okay.
Your Honor, this exhibit is, I'm sorry, Counsel 344 for identification purposes. I'm going to hand this to the witness. And why don't you hand me those two things right there? Take that. And here's a pen. Don't do anything yet. Alright, do you recognize the exhibit that I've just placed in front of you?
Yeah, it looks like the inside of the plane that we were in.
Alright, Your Honor, I'm going to move that be admitted into evidence for the purpose of illustrating his testimony.
I have no objection.
It's admitted.
Okay, we're going to put a diagram on the board, on the Elmo in just a second. This is a laser.
Okay.
Go ahead, put it up. It should be coming up.
It will take a moment.
Okay, Gavin.
Yes.
I want you to look up on the board, and ask if you can show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where you were seated on the plane. Okay, so you're indicating in the middle of the diagram, correct?
Yes.
Now, on the chart that's in front of you. Okay. 344.
Yes.
I want you to take that pen I gave you and I want you to put your initials in the seat that you've just showed to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Now, I want you to show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where Mr. Jackson was sitting. Okay, it's the one right next to you, closest to the aisle, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you put an MJ on the seat where he was located? Now, do you recall where your brother Star was sitting at the time that he was offered the can with the alcohol in it by Mr. Jackson?
I don't think he was sitting. He was standing, and he was.
Where was he standing?
Right there.
Right in that area?
Yes.
Would you put your brother's initials, and by that area, you're meaning in the aisle at the end of the table, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just put your brother's initials where you. Now, do you remember where your mom was sitting?
I think she was sitting over here somewhere.
Okay, move the diagram, if you would. Do you think she was down there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, put your mother's initials in there, if you would. And by there, we mean on the upper side of the diagram with the chair that's the farthest to the left?
Okay, what do I put? JJ, or?
Yeah. Do you remember where any other of the people on the plane were sitting?
I'm not sure, but Prince and Paris started out right there. And then I think Grace was in there.
Okay, why don't you, where you say Prince and Paris were, put 2 P's on your diagram, 344.
Okay.
And you mentioned a person by the name of Grace. Who is that, to your knowledge?
It's like Prince and Paris's guardian lady.
Okay, so why don't you put a G, where you think that the individual you knew as Grace was sitting? Alright, anybody else? Do you remember where Aldo and Marie Nicole were sitting?
I'm not sure. I think they might have been sitting on those things.
On the area in blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
But you're not sure?
No.
Okay, and how about your sister?
I think she was sitting there.
Was she there the whole time?
No.
Did you see where she moved to?
I don't know. I just see her pass by. We were all sitting sometimes.
You indicated for your sister a seat that's up on the front part of the left side of the diagram on the lower side of the plane, correct?
Yeah.
Alright, why don't you put your sister's initials in there, then?
Okay.
Alright, I think we're done with that?
Okay.
We can turn the lights back on, Your Honor. Put the cap on the pen, if you would, please. Thanks, Gavin. Gavin, do you know what it means to be intoxicated?
Yes.
What's that mean, in your words?
When you have a lot of alcohol in your system.
When you were on the plane, did you feel intoxicated?
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, maybe a little.
Okay. Do you remember when you landed in the plane whether it was daylight or dark outside?
I think it was dark.
And when you landed, where did you go?
We went to Neverland.
And how did you get there?
Michael had, this big SUV, white, limousine.
And when you got to Neverland Ranch, where did you spend the night?
I'm pretty sure we spent the night in Michael's room.
You say, we. Who is we?
Me and my brother.
Do you remember if anything happened that particular night?
When we got there, me and my brother ran straight to the carts, because we wanted to ride the carts, drive the carts around. But then we went to Michael's room and we slept there, and we all slept in the bed together.
In whose bed?
Michael's.
Now, are you familiar with a person by the name of Jesus?
Yes.
And where did you meet Jesus?
At the ranch.
And to your knowledge, what was Jesus's responsibility?
I think he was like the manager of the ranch.
Now, after you got back from Miami and you were on Neverland Ranch, okay. At some point did Jesus take you somewhere?
Yes.
Where did he take you?
He took us back to my grandma's house.
When you say he took us, who is us?
Me, my mom, my brother, my sister.
Now, I want to talk about some things that happened between the time that you got back from Miami and you went to the ranch.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Till the time that that Jesus took you to your grandmother's place, okay?
Okay.
Now, you told us that the first time that night you spent in Mr. Jackson's room and you slept in his bed, along with your brother and Mr. Jackson. From the time you got back from Miami till the time you left with Jesus, where did you sleep?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
From the time you got back from Miami and you went to the ranch.
Okay.
Okay. Till the time you left with Jesus, alright. Where did you sleep?
Whenever Michael was there, we would all sleep in Michael's room.
Was Mr. Jackson there during that time period?
Yeah.
During the time after you got to the ranch, when the limousine took you from the airport to Neverland Valley Ranch, till the time you left with Jesus, did you ever have any more alcohol?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
Every night that Michael was there.
Alright. Do you remember where you drank?
We would, in the arcade, because that's where the wine cellar was. Well, it's kind of like a wine cellar.
You say, we. Who's we?
Me, my brother, Michael mainly.
And how did you get into the wine cellar?
Michael would take us there.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, just describe how you get down there?
Okay, in the back of the main house, there's an arcade. And then, you walk across, and there's a pool to the right, and then you go inside the arcade. And then, there's this jukebox, and then you have to move the jukebox. And then you walk down these stairs, and there's a door that you open. It's kind of to the right. And then you walk in there, and there's no alcohol in the first room. There's, sleeping bags, I think, like a little green couch. And then you walk through, and then to the right there's another door, and then there's this hallway kind of thing, and then that's where, all the alcohol was, in refrigerators and stuff like that.
And who was it that took you down to that area the first time?
Michael.
Did you ever go down there without Mr. Jackson?
No. Well, we went down there once. That was just because we wanted to, look at the little green thing that they had there with all the trees and stuff on there. It was kind of like a model thing.
Did you ever go down there and drink any alcohol without Mr. Jackson being present?
No.
And you said, we went down there to look at these little green things. Who was it that went with you?
Me and my brother.
Was it a time when Mr. Jackson was on the ranch?
Yes.
Now, were there any other locations on the ranch where you drank with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Where?
In his office and in his room.
And would this be during the same time period we're talking about? From the time period from when you got there from Miami till the time you left with Jesus?
If it happened.
Yes?
Yes.
Was there ever any occasion that you drank something other than wine?
Yes.
Tell us what it was?
I drank Bacardi, vodka and Jim Beam.
Jim what?
Jim Beam, I think it was called.
Did you say, bean?
Bean.
Can you spell it?
Bean.
Okay. And who provided you with the Bacardi?
Michael.
Who provided you with the Jim Beam?
Michael.
And who provided you with the vodka?
Michael.
Did Mr. Jackson ever say anything to you about drinking and providing this alcohol to you?
No, he just said, like, well, it's Jesus juice and it was okay because Jesus drank it, and stuff like that.
Did you ever tell Mr. Jackson that you only had one kidney?
Yes.
And did you ever tell Mr. Jackson anything about alcohol and your kidney?
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
Did you ever have a conversation with Mr. Jackson about your kidneys?
Yes.
Kidney?
Kidney, yeah.
Sorry. What did you tell him?
I told him that it was bad for me to drink alcohol. And he said it's okay, that it's fine, that nothing's going to happen.
Do you recall how many occasions you had that conversation with Mr. Jackson?
I think like 3 times.
I couldn't hear you.
Maybe like 3 times.
And where was it when you had these conversations with Mr. Jackson?
I think once was in the office and the other 2 times were in kind of like the wine cellar thing.
Were there times that you went down to the wine cellar where your brother wasn't present?
It was just me and Michael.
Yes?
Yes.
How many times do you think that just you and Michael went down to the wine cellar? Now, I want to stay. That was a bad question. Let me just start over again. Okay?
Okay.
I want to focus on the time where you got there from Miami and the limo took you to the ranch till the time that you left with Jesus, okay?
Okay.
Did you ever go to the wine cellar with just you and Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And on how many occasions was it just you and Mr. Jackson in the wine cellar?
Not many, but, like, maybe 5 times between Miami and Jesus.
During the time that you were there from Miami to Jesus, did you ever drink in the bedroom?
Yes.
How many times do you think that was?
A lot, because we would sleep in his room, and then we would take the Jesus juice up there.
So you'd take the stuff up there to drink?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you know what the term crank call means?
Yes.
Tell the jury what crank call means.
When you call, like, a person that doesn't know you, and you, like, say something or make fun of them and it will make you laugh, the people that are making the phone call.
Did you ever make any crank calls from Mr. Jackson's residence?
Yes.
Where were you when you made them?
In his room mainly.
Was there anybody else present?
Yes.
Who?
My brother.
And anybody else?
Aldo.
Anybody else?
Michael. I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Did anybody else make any crank calls besides you?
We were all making crank calls.
You say, we were all. Who do you mean by, we?
Aldo, Michael, me, my brother.
And in connection with making these calls, was there anything that, do you know what it means when the call doesn't go through, you don't get somebody?
Yes.
What happened when you did that?
Oh, this happened once. We had this big, like, it was a bottle of wine, it was like that big. And we made up this game. If you make a phone call and, like, we would dial random numbers, and if it rang and nobody picked up, you have to take a big gulp of wine. Because we didn't really like how it tasted, so we made up that game.
So, what?
We didn't really like how it tasted, so we made that game up so we would have a drink, a gulp of wine, if the call didn't go through.
Did anybody have to drink because the call didn't go through that night?
Yeah.
You have that look on your face like it was you?
Yeah, it was me.
Anybody else?
I think my brother once or twice. It's because, like, I would always, because I kind of liked making crank calls, so I would make a lot of them, and so then a lot of them wouldn't go through.
During the time you were at the ranch again, from the time you got there in the limo till the time you left with Jesus, do you know where your mother was staying?
In her unit.
In her what?
In her unit that they gave her.
And did you ever go visit her?
Yes.
How many times do you think you visited her?
Like, 3 times a week.
And did you have, don't tell us what she said, just tell us. I want to know, did you have any conversations with her?
Yes.
Did you ever have any conversations with her about leaving?
Yes.
Did you want to leave, you personally?
Not really, because I was kind of having fun.
Could you describe your mother's demeanor or attitude during the time that you'd visit her?
She was scared and she wanted to leave, and she was.
Objection. Move to strike. Non-responsive.
The last part of the answer is stricken after, she was scared.
Your Honor, I believe that I'm offering the second part of it with regard to conduct in conformance with the state of mind. It was an exception.
The question was, could you describe your mother's demeanor or attitude? Which he then started describing her actions, so it's non-responsive.
All right, I'll break it up. Did your mother tell you that she wanted to leave?
Objection. Hearsay. And leading.
Further foundation would be necessary.
All right. Were the conversations that you had with your mother, where were they?
They were usually in her room.
And how did the topics about her being scared come up? Don't tell us what was.
Objection.
Just tell us who brought the subject matter up.
She did.
Objection. Foundation. Leading.
Overruled. Proceed with the foundation.
I'm sorry. Who brought them up?
My mom.
And were there any other persons present?
No, I don't think so.
During those conversations, how many conversations do you think you had with her about the fact that she was scared?
Like every time I would go there.
During those conversations, did she tell you anything about whether or not she wanted to be on the ranch?
Yes.
Objection. Hearsay. Foundation.
Overruled. State of mind.
You may answer.
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me that she was afraid that they were going to kill us, and then that she wanted to leave.
Now, when you got back to the ranch, Neverland Valley Ranch, after you came from Miami. Okay. I think there's a better way. Let me do it this way. Your Honor, I'm just going to. Instead of showing them on the overhead, I'm just going to show them to the witness because they've been up so many times already, with the court's permission?
All right.
Excuse me, are they all in evidence?
Yes. No, I'd show you anything new. I'm going to show you a photograph. I'll just put these in front of you. Okay?
Okay.
I'll show you a photograph marked Peoples 28. Do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes.
Who is that?
Jamie Masada.
All right, why don't you turn the next one over? Just show it to the jury, if you would, for just a second. All right, do you recognize the person depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
Who is that?
Dieter.
Okay, turn it over. The next one, what's the number on that?
18.
18. And who is that?
Ronald.
Okay, turn it over. And the next one. All right, who is that, and what's the number on that? Is that 20?
20.
All right, who is that?
Frank.
Turn that one down. Does Frank have a last name, that you know of?
Tyson.
All right, the next one is what number? 21.
Yes.
All right, who's that?
Aldo.
All right, why don't you turn that one over? And the last one is 22.
Yes.
And who is that?
That's Marie Nicole.
All right, just go ahead and turn that one over. Now, let me ask you a question about the people you've identified as Dieter and Ronald. Okay?
Okay.
Now, when you got back from Miami and you went to the ranch. Okay. And before you left with Jesus, same time period.
Okay.
Did you see either Dieter or Ronald at Neverland Valley Ranch?
No, I don't think so.
Did you ever see them at the ranch?
Yes.
When do you think you saw them there?
I think I saw them when we came back after we left with Jesus.
Now, you've identified the photograph of Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
And did you see Mr. Tyson at the ranch?
I don't know. I don't think so.
During the entire time you were there, you don't recall seeing him?
Yeah, I remember seeing him there at Neverland.
Oh, okay. Do you recall when it was you saw him there?
I don't remember the first time.
Do you remember on how many occasions you saw him there?
No, but I saw him there a lot. Well,
I can't hear you.
No, but I saw him there.
Did you ever see the two people that you talked about there, Dieter and Ronald? Okay.
Okay.
Were they at the ranch at the same time as Mr. Jackson?
Yes, I believe so.
Did you ever see them together?
I think so. I did once or twice.
Alright. You left with the person you've identified to the jury as a person by the name of Jesus. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you told us you went to your grandparents' place. What time was it when you left with Jesus?
Late at night.
And do you recall who it was that, well, was it the person you knew as Jesus who did the driving?
Yes.
When you got to your grandparents' place, did you ever go back to Neverland Valley Ranch after that?
Yes.
And do you recall how many days there were in between the time you left and the time you went back?
I'm not sure. I think a few days.
Do you ever recall, during the time that you were off of the ranch, having a telephone conversation with Frank Tyson?
Yes.
And where were you when you participated in that telephone conversation?
I'm not sure.
Do you recall who else was present during the conversation?
My mom.
And did you talk to Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Tyson say to you? And it's offered under 1223, Your Honor?
All right. I'm accepting this testimony conditionally, as before.
Objection noted. Your Honor.
Noted.
Thank you.
He was telling me about that they were scared that something was going to happen to me, and that they were worried, and they wanted us to come back up, stuff like that.
Did you ever make any complaints to Mr. Tyson?
Yeah.
And what complaint did you make to Mr. Tyson?
That I didn't like the dieter and Ronald.
And why did you say that?
Because they had my mom worried, really. And my mom was scared of them, so.
Where was it that your mom had contact with Dieter and Ronald?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Do you know where it was that your mother had contact with Ronald or Dieter?
Now that I think back, I think it was at Neverland, so I think they were there before we left with Jesus. Or it could have been a phone call.
I couldn't. Alright. So you voiced a complaint to Mr. Tyson on the phone?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Tyson say to you about the complaint? Do you recall anything?
He said that we'll never have to see them again.
Objection. Hearsay.
Offered for the same purpose, Your Honor.
All right. I'll allow the testimony under the conditional admittance of hearsay that I've ruled on before. I'm a little concerned, though. It's not clear to me.
How about if I go back and ask a clarifying question? I think I know where the court's going.
All right.
I might be able to help the court. You told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that you had a telephone conversation with Mr. Tyson at some point after you had left the ranch with Jesus. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that your mother was present during that conversation?
Yes.
And that you personally talked to Mr. Tyson?
Yes.
All right. Now, you were about to tell us something that Mr. Tyson said, and I believe, if you could do that. And again, it's offered for the same reason, Your Honor?
Objection. Hearsay.
I'll admit it conditionally.
Go ahead.
He just told me that I would never have to see them again.
See them, meaning who?
Dieter and Ronald.
Now, at some point you went back to the ranch.
Yes.
Is that correct? And do you recall how you got back there?
I'm not too sure.
Who went back with you?
Me, my mom, my brother, my sister.
And when you got back to the ranch, do you recall what time of the day or night it was?
No.
When you got back to the ranch, do you recall whether or not you saw Dieter or Ronald?
Yes.
Do you recall where they were when you saw them?
I think I saw Dieter in the kitchen sitting on the stool thing. And he's saying that we were going to, go to.
You're going to have to talk into that and not mumble?
And he told us that he wanted to, go to Australia or Brazil, or something like that, for a vacation.
Do you know whether or not your mom remained on the ranch, or left that night or that day that you got back?
I think that was the day that she went down to see my now stepdad.
I can't hear you.
I think that was the day that she went down to go see my now stepdad.
Now, during the time that you were at Neverland Valley Ranch, you've told us that you were in Mr. Jackson's bedroom and in his bed, correct?
Yes.
Now, how do you get into Mr. Jackson's bedroom?
You walk through these big double doors, and then you walk to the other door, and then you punch in a code, and then there are two other double doors, the little lock goes off, and then you can open the door, and that's his room.
Now, are there any, does anything go off when you get to a certain point?
Yes.
That you're walking down the hallway?
Yes.
What is it that goes off?
Well, when you go in the first door, it goes like this, a little ringing sound goes off. And then when you punch in the code, another, it goes off again.
Can you hear from the outside of, when it goes off?
Yes.
Can you tell us what it sounds like?
Dee-doo, dee-doo. Sounds like that.
And do you recall how many times it goes? I'm not going to imitate you. How many times it does that?
I'm not sure. I think it was maybe 3 times.
Now, where did you get the code to get into Mr. Jackson's bedroom or into his bedroom suite?
Michael.
Pardon?
Michael.
Was there more than one code to get in there?
Yeah, I think so. Because the nurse, not the nurse. The maid lady would punch in a different code than the one I knew.
So did you get another set of codes from somebody?
Oh, for the other, well, there's another door to the main house that I knew a code for.
You did or did not?
Did.
Alright, where did you get that information from?
Either it was Michael that gave it to me or the maids gave it to me. Because they change it sometimes, so.
Now, do you remember, you told us that some of the times that you drank vodka with Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Do you ever remember a situation? What effect did the vodka have on you?
Well, there was just one time, vodka really tasted.
You're going to have to lean into that and talk so we can hear you.
I don't really understand what you're.
What effect did the vodka have on you?
What did it make me feel like?
Yeah?
Well, there was one time where the first time that Michael introduced me to vodka, he had, a glass about that big.
Objection. Calls for a narrative. Non-responsive.
It's non-responsive.
Alright, did Mr. Jackson provide vodka to you?
Yes.
And how did he, and what did he provide it to you in?
In a glass about that big.
So you're indicating maybe 2 or 3 inches?
I guess. I don't know.
And what kind of a glass? Where were you when he provided it to you?
I was in the wine cellar.
And did you see him pour the vodka into it?
No.
Did you know what it was when you first sipped it?
No.
How was it that you ended up drinking that particular glass?
I walked down there, because I asked where Michael was. Well, we were in the arcade, and that's what we usually kind of did. And then so I went down to the wine cellar and I saw Michael there, and then Michael had the glass poured. And then I asked him what that was, and he said, drink it. And then he said
Objection.
Alright.
Non-responsive.
What did he say to you?
He told me to drink the.
Just a moment. There's an objection pending, or just to the narrative.
Narrative, Your Honor.
Go ahead with your next question.
What did he say to you?
He told me to drink the vodka.
And did you do that?
Yes, but I didn't know it was vodka. I thought it was water, because it's clear.
Okay.
So I drank it really fast like if it was water. And then I didn't really, when I brought it to my nose, it smelled like rubbing alcohol, and then I chucked it back really quick, and it started burning. Well, I, took down the whole thing, but it really burned. And then 2 or 3 seconds later my head started. It looked like the room was spinning, so I put my head inside the couch. You know the green couch that I was talking about? I put my head inside it so I couldn't see the room spinning, because it was kind of hurting.
Why did you do that? Why did you put your head into the couch, in the pillow?
I remember when I was a little, we'd spin around a lot when we play. I would close my eyes or put my head into a pillow or something, so that way I wouldn't see the room spin.
Was that the only occasion that you drank vodka with Mr. Jackson?
No.
Were there other occasions?
Yeah.
How many, do you think, where you had vodka with Mr.?
I'm not sure, because when we drink wine, we'd usually have a little bit of vodka, so, a lot of times.
Your Honor, at this time I have an exhibit marked as 345 for identification purposes. And I've shown it to Mr. Sanger, but I'll show it to other counsel. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. Okay, Gavin.
Okay.
I put in front of you an item marked as Exhibit 345. Okay?
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Were you asked to look at that last night?
Yes.
And with regard to looking at that, were you asked to see if you recognized the material that's on that video?
Yes.
And did you?
Yes.
I move that it be admitted and played to the jury, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we're going to object on foundation grounds. We've reviewed that. There are severe problems with the accuracy of that.
Can't hear you, Mr. Mesereau.
Oh, pardon me.
Do you want to restate your objection?
Yes, Your Honor. We have reviewed the DVD. We strongly object on foundation grounds and authenticity grounds. We think it's a mischaracterization and a misrepresentation of what it tries to depict, and we have factual reasons for that.
What is it a DVD of?
It's the chimes that go off when you go in the door.
Oh.
And it was. I won't say anything more, unless you want me to.
It's inaccurate, Your Honor.
That's subject to cross-examination, though.
Your Honor, I think.
There is a foundation problem, though. He didn't create the video. He just watched it.
That's correct. But it's illustrative of what his testimony is with regard to the sound. So I think it's admissible on that basis. And I'll represent to the court, without any question we'll be able to lay the foundation as to who took that and that it is accurate.
We'd object on authenticity and foundation, Your Honor. It's not an accurate depiction of what it purports to be.
All right. Let me look a minute. Here. All right. I'm going to sustain the foundation objection. Right now the foundation that you laid was. Do you recognize 345? Yes. Were you asked to look at it last night? Yes. And with regard to looking at that, were you asked to see if you recognized the material on the video? Yes. And did you? Yes. So I find that as an insufficient foundation.
All right. Then what I propose to do at this point, Your Honor, would be to have this witness step down and I'll put Sergeant Robel on to lay the foundation.
All right.
I can do that between now and the break, and then the witness can come back immediately afterwards.
All right.
All right. Gavin, would you step out, please? Call Sergeant Robel.
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Steve Daniel Robel. Robel.
Thank you.
You're a sergeant with the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
Approximately 22 years.
Now, on November 18, 2003, were you present during the execution of a search warrant at Neverland Valley Ranch?
Yes, I was.
And are you one of the lead investigators into the case against the defendant in this case, Michael Jackson?
Yes, I am.
Were you present at the time that entry was made into his residence?
Yes, I was.
And were you in the company of the individual who was filming the entry into the house?
Yes, I was.
And did you accompany that person all through the house?
Yes, I did.
And have you had occasion to review, and did he videotape the entire house before anybody made any other entry into it?
Yes, he did.
Did you accompany him in that part of the house where the hallway leads into Mr. Jackson's bedroom suite?
Yes, I did.
Were you present when he videotaped that?
Yes, I was.
And have you reviewed that videotape in connection with this investigation?
Yes.
And with regard to the particular exhibit that's in front of you marked as 345. 344.
It's 345.
345. Did you review that?
Yes.
Is that a portion of the videotape that was taken by the person who accompanied you at the time that you folks executed the search warrant?
Yes, it is.
On the 18th?
Yes, it is.
And is it an accurate depiction of the sound that you heard when you entered Mr. Jackson's bedroom suite?
Yes.
Cross-examine.
That's my witness, if that's all right.
No further questions. I guess I should have said, Your Honor.
Sergeant Robel, at the time. Let's start with this. 345 is a snippet, as it were, from a many-hour-long video. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that little snippet was selected today, or for today's proceedings, by you, is that right? Or was it selected by somebody else?
This was off of a CD.
Who selected it?
I did, and Detective Bonner.
You did?
And Detective Bonner.
And Detective Bonner?
Yes.
So you went through to find a part of that CD where you might hear a bell?
Yes.
Okay. At the time that you were going through the residence when this tape was actually being made, you were not listening for that bell, were you?
No, we weren't.
Okay. You were walking through, and you were. This was your first opportunity to go inside Mr. Jackson's bedroom suite, is that right?
As, under a circumstance of a protective sweep, yes.
In other words, you started your search by going through the house and making sure that there was nobody in the rooms, and making sure you knew where everything was. Is that right?
Exactly. And making sure that if there were people in the rooms, we would bring them downstairs and centrally locate them, yes. Safety purposes.
And the filming was going on at that time?
Yes.
And you had never been in Mr. Jackson's bedroom suite before that time, is that correct?
No, I hadn't.
So you were looking around. You were vigilant to see if there was anybody in there. You were doing your job at that point, correct?
Yes.
Alright, so you weren't really listening for that bell?
I wasn't. Not actively, no.
And the reason you found this part of the tape is, you went back to listen to the tape, and you and Detective Bonner found a place where you heard something about the bell. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break and move on.